I'm going to tell you a bit about my double life. For many years, I lived a double life. In the week, I was a highfalutin, high-powered corporate consultant advising international corporations on how to make loads of money. And on the weekend, I was a raver and a clubber and a promoter and a DJ. And I held those two things very separate, actually. There was the corporate order in the week and then the creative chaos on the weekend, basically. And I kind of liked that balance. When I got to my mid-30s and I was still doing the music stuff, and actually when I really thought about it, that was what I was passionate about. That's what I was excited about. That's what I thought about and I was interested in. And I was looking around me and I could see people that I'd come up with over the years who'd had amazing careers in music and were much more engaged in that world. And I thought to myself, I need to make a decision. And I need to split from this corporate world. And I need to double down on my passion. And I left the job and a bunch of other stuff, big life change actually. And I went full-time into music in February 2020. And less than a month later, all my plans were cast aside because a supposed global emergency happened, which you all know about. And that was a bit of a shock, actually. And actually, the thing that was the biggest shock about it is that over that period, I watched the creative, grassroots, music world and that community that I'd been part of and I'd always held as separate and distinct from corporate do exactly what the corporations wanted, basically. They delivered the agenda completely. Right, so the institutions from the big major labels, which you kind of expect them to lead the charge on the lockdown and the vaccines and everything. You'd expect it from them, but you wouldn't expect it from the niche underground music labels, communities, platforms, journalists and artists, right? But they had been captured in some way. And in order to bring that to life for you a little bit, I'm going to show you a clip. I hope this works. I don't know if it will. From a 1997 film called Men in Black.
The only thing that pulls its weight around here is my goddamn truck.
Vegas.
What the heck is it, Edgar?
Get your big butt back in the house.
Place projectile weapon on the ground.
You can have my gun when you pry it from my cold dead fingers.
Your proposal is acceptable.
Edgar, what on earth was that?
Sugar.
I've never seen Sugar do that.
Give me sugar. In water. More. More.
your skin is hanging off your bones.
Oh, yeah. Is that better?
Okay. It's the skin suit, which is a term that I got from Alex Thompson, by the way, skin suit, which is really gruesome, actually, when you think about it. But basically what it describes is a parasitic entity that kills and then takes on the form of something whilst changing its purpose, basically. But when you get up close to it and you really start to kind of interrogate it, actually it becomes obvious that this isn't the thing that you thought it was, right? So this is Edgar. The skin is hanging off his bones. Interestingly, did anyone see Mark Devlin's talk last night? A couple of people. So this thing about sugar water, like, I don't know, there's something about that I think is interesting. Because if you think about like carbonated drinks, the stuff that, like the junk that we get sold, it's all sugar water basically, isn't it? Right? And I don't know, is there something about these parasitic entities that like sugar and the way that we're drinking this stuff? Like, you know, those horrible monster drinks with the 666 on, all that kind of thing. I think there's something in that anyway. But, you know, under interrogation, it gets really ugly. So when I see that, I think about, you know, when Keir Starmer got kicked out of that pub by that guy, right? It's like, so he kind of looks like a normal man, but then when you put him into a social situation and he actually has to deal with real people, then it all just falls to pieces, basically, right? And this is kind of what we're looking at here. And this is true across the whole system. I won't put that gruesome image up there for too long. I'll flick it back to this one. But essentially, all of the component parts of the system that have existed for a very long time look like the old thing that we thought that they were. But actually they're not. And they've been taken over by a parasitic entity, an energy, a system, essentially. Sorry? Wetico. Oh, yes, I'm familiar with that, yes. Yeah, Will Keats talked about that before. Right. Okay. Right. Now, okay, we're going to talk later. Fascinating. But it's true across the whole system, right? And I jotted down a few examples. The health system is not to do with health. Actually, I was a trustee of a health charity, and one of my fellow trustees who knew a lot about the NHS and how it worked, he said that the NHS has been designed to create, collect and kill sick people as profitably as possible. That's a parasitic entity, right? It's a skin suit. It's not a health service. It's something different. Same with the food system, right? It's about delivering genetic engineered mush into your body. It's got nothing to do with nutrition. It's got nothing to do with what's natural. It's got nothing to do with what's happening in this field back here, right? Where they've got a permaculture running. That's actual food, not what we get served up in the supermarket. Political system. I mentioned Starmer, but again, he's supposed to be the British Prime Minister, but he's working for the World Economic Forum. Yeah, it's completely different by his own estimation. Right, he's told us this. What else? The army. It's supposed to be defending us, but actually, there is a document that came out earlier this year called the Integrated Operating Concept, which basically says that the enemy is everywhere, including in our own barracks. So if the enemy's actually in your own barracks, is the army, and the whole population, the whole civilian population of the nation is your enemy, potentially, that's a hideous reframing of what the army is and how it's supposed to think. All right? Where else? Artificial intelligence. It's not intelligent. And actually it destroys real intelligence. Another good example. Where else? Money. So our money, particularly where they're trying to take it to, is not actually money. It's a control mechanism. And the best person to listen to about that is Catherine Austin Fitts. Mike did a great interview with Catherine Austin Fitts about 6 months ago, I think it was, and she talked about exactly that. Your money's not money. Money's supposed to do three things. It's a store of value, it's a method of exchange, and a unit of account. And a CBDC barely does any of those things, right? And actually, it's much more about control. The church is run by satanic paedophiles, as I think Brian is going to talk about in about an hour or so. And the cultural system, the musical system, the world that I was investing my future in, is actually about coercion and control and the transformation of society. And actually all the things that I thought it was, or many of the things that I thought it was, actually it wasn't at all. You know, it was a really, really striking thing to come across. Oh, and also I forgot to do the legal system, which I will just introduce now because I thought this was quite fun. So we've talked about what Brian Levison's been doing in terms of trying to destroy trial by jury. They've also, I'm very disappointed to say, destroying trial by combat as well, which this guy in Bury St Edmunds tried to engage in trial by combat rather than pay £25 for a motoring offence. It's quite good. I'm from Bury St Edmunds. I was quite proud about that. So anyway, back to the music stuff. I'm going to talk about music festivals, which I think is probably relevant and pertinent given we are at a music festival. And this is a real festival, by the way. Like, this is actually proper grassroots, organic, for the people, by the people, and not for some gross corporate entity, which is what's unfortunately happened to a lot of the big musical institutions that we have, right? So actually, you know, Glastonbury Festival. Has anyone been to Glastonbury? Right, okay, right. Good or bad? Up or down? Like, terrible. Used to be good. Okay, that's interesting, isn't it? So what happened? Because it used to be a good thing and then something changed. Yes. By who? The British Broadcasting Corporation. What is it a corporation? Does anyone know? Because it gets tossed off, doesn't it? The BBC. Why is it a corporation? Why does it need to be a corporation? Why can't we just have a national broadcaster? Yes.
King or Queen of State owns everything in the nation. That is the body, even you and your children. But
yes.
that's a deep level of legal understanding.
Right.
There's many variations that have been chucked out, but that is the legal understanding of the law that they have subject to.
So it's got nothing to do with us. It's got everything to do with maintaining the status quo.
There's a thing recently in the news about children, wasn't it? I can't remember the last 2 days something about children. The point is, the state wants your kids, and that's what its early start stuff is about.
Yeah.
They're getting younger and younger, they'll snatch them out of the grave if they can. The world is almost becoming a science fiction world, is it not?
Yeah, it is, yeah. And that those sound like the actions of a parasitic entity, right? That is aggressive to human life.
History in the last 1,000 years is pretty tough.
No, I think you're absolutely correct, and I think you've landed on something interesting in terms of some of the characters that you've introduced into this, right? So anyway, Glastonbury is kind of the showpiece, isn't it? It's probably the most famous music festival on earth. I think that's probably fair to say, right? And it is. I've never been, by the way. I've got loads of friends who've been, loads of friends who've performed at it. I think it died a death in the mid-90s, right? And actually, I think when it really died a death, when the BBC properly got involved, so it was around 1997, 98, when they actually went in and they weren't just broadcasting it, they actually took over a lot of the operational stuff in the background as well. Because pre that, it was Michael Eavis, and it was, you know, I don't want to get into his particular background or his relationship with the music industry or the fact that most of those major labels are just frankly evil. But okay. Right, there you go, 97, there you go. Right, exactly. And actually now I like that word anarchic, because these things should be kind of anarchic, shouldn't they? But they're not. And actually the thing that I noticed with Glastonbury, because I've sort of, you know, you can't avoid it. It's just there, right? And but actually this year I wanted to have a proper look at what was going on in the background and who's pulling strings, because I wanted to understand it a little bit better. And I went to the homepage, and a little research tip for people: don't really look at the website at all. Just go straight to the bottom. Any website, you have a look right at the bottom, or you look at trustees or governance, and that's it. And pretty much from that, you can tell everything you need to know about what's going on. Any industry, anything, right? That's a little short circuit for you. And you can see here that Glastonbury, right at its base, at the bottom level, its foundation is built on top of 3 NGOs. And these are big international corporate non-governmental organisations, 2 of which you're probably very familiar with, Oxfam and Greenpeace, pushing a lot of the woke, progressive, liberal, climate crisis-driven agenda that we talk about all the time on the column. I won't talk about those too much. The one that really caught my attention was the one on the right-hand side, WaterAid. Because I'd never heard of WaterAid. Has anyone heard of WaterAid? Yeah, okay. Quite a knowledgeable crowd, obviously. I would expect nothing less. So anyway, I hadn't, and I had to go and do a little bit of research, homework, to go and find out who they were. And it's hashtag Team Water, obviously, it needs a hashtag. And it turns out this thing was founded in 1981. So that's Thatcher. It's Thatcher. Is someone saying Jimmy Savile? Is that Savile? No, they all looked like Savile back then, didn't they? It was the look. Yeah, but I'm sure he was lurking around somewhere. Yeah, so basically this was set up, and they had something called the Thirsty World Conference, and it says here, determined to find a solution to a global crisis. This is what they do. They invent crises. So they go, oh no, there's a crisis. Really? Where does that come from? You've just declared it. And that means that you now have to set up a special working group and some kind of corporate infrastructure in order to meddle with everyone's business in order to deal with this supposed crisis, right? And that's literally where we're at now. It's the poly crisis. Everything is a crisis, and these people are about the water crisis, right? And actually, who's behind it? Because it's the water industry. Yeah, so this is privatised water utilities. These are the bad people in water in the country, aren't they? Everyone talks about the water utilities all the time. They have been for years. Yeah, so these were the original public assets that were taken private, loaded up with debt, the huge bonuses paid out to the corporate boards, to the directors, and are now owned essentially in tax havens, and they are running the infrastructure into the ground, and raising our bills constantly. And that's getting worse, basically. Water's kind of been to the side a little bit. It's not the kind of bill that comes every month. It's like once a year, and it's probably a bit less than the others. But actually, they're starting to escalate, right? And there's a lot of talk now about renationalising these broken assets, and they've been broken by these people, and these people run something called WaterAid, and apparently they're helping transform water around the whole world. So you've destroyed water, these really important foundational national assets that we have in the UK that have been built up through the taxes of our ancestors over hundreds of years, have been bought, destroyed, stripped, but you're going around the world helping people fix water problems. That doesn't actually add up. Doesn't make any sense, right? And then who's running it? Have a guess. Who's the patron? Yes, of course it is. Right, it's this guy. Why is he hanging around with these people? Well, because these are his people. Right, but he's Mr. Nice Guy, right? He's Mr. Environment, he's Mr. Sustainability, he's Mr. Future Humanity, and actually, no, he's overseeing the destruction of our water infrastructure, the pollution of our rivers, the pollution of our oceans, ruthless corporate skullduggery on an unbelievable level. And he is, through that organisation, dictating the cultural agenda at Glastonbury Festival. That's crazy. Why isn't music supposed to be from the grassroots up, anarchic and creative and expressive and not controlled by people like this. Like, he's the total antithesis of what that's supposed to be. But obviously they couldn't put him on the front page of the Glastonbury website because it'd be a massive turn off. So they have to stick him down the bottom, round the corner, out the back. But this is what culture's become. And this is why in 2020-21 I saw all of the people that I had up to that point respected and worked with and known over the years went completely headfirst into the whole Great Reset agenda, which, let's not forget, he launched in November 2020. He was the main global figurehead for it. Yeah? So these are the strings that we're looking at, essentially, that people like him use to control the puppets out in society, right? And let's not forget this, because things are getting quite tetchy in the country at the moment, and what we really don't need is things like this happening.
Death, death to the IDF, 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 death, death to the IDF. Hell yeah, from the river to the sea, Palestine must be, will be, inshallah, it will be free.
Who saw that? Bob Villan. Right. Oh, you were there? Okay. Well, all right. In the crowd? And what was your response to that? Like, because it looks, you know, it was definitely a vibey gig. Like, there was a lot of energy. I bet it was. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, well, that's something we can all get behind, right? You know, so there's some good in here and there's some bad in here. But the thing is, and I'm not here to defend the IDF, by the way, for a second. My issue with this is that shouldn't have been broadcast at 7 p.m. on the national broadcaster in the current climate. Yeah? Like, it's not appropriate at all. And actually, when you go and look at this guy, and this is his logo, what does that look like? Bob Villan's logo looks like a six-pointed star with a load of weird occult stuff around it. That's what it looks like. So I'm like, this is interesting, isn't it? What are you actually up to? And how has the BBC, overseen by the King, allowed it, right? Because there's a delay on those feeds. Yeah, so they knew that was going to go out. They could have stopped it. They didn't. Why? Because they want to cause chaos and breakdown in the country. And division, because they can profit from it, because they want to affect a transformation of our society. Every single different component part of it, I was talking about it earlier, yeah, culturally, politically, economically. That's what they're doing. That's what the Great Reset is. Charles launched it. This guy is a chaos agent for the establishment. That's what he is. Fortunately, that's what I see him as. And also, these were the lyrics to one of his songs, right? Again, in the current climate, I'm not going to read it. We're on the UK column, so I can't say the naughty word, right? But essentially what he's saying is, I heard you want your country back. Shut up. I heard you want your country back. You can't have that. I heard you want your country back. Shut up. And the lyrics don't get a lot more sophisticated than that, to be honest with you. It's quite a crude message. And he's out there saying, I'm against the IDF, but also, if you're British, this, right? And the thing is, this is what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians at the moment. So what are you, Mr. Villan? And what is actually getting delivered here out into society? Under the auspices of the King. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. And that's just one part of a huge cultural agenda at Glastonbury. Right, you won't be able to read these. There's loads of names on there, and this is just one component part of it, right? Because it's not just a music festival. Yeah, it is about cultural transformation, mind control, delivering a very, very specific message, particularly around woke, liberal, progressive politics, because actually that's the direction of travel they want to take everything. They want everything to be delivered through the state. Everything's going to be under state control. And Charles is obviously the head of state. Yeah, so that makes sense, doesn't it? So maybe that's just what Glastonbury is. It's certainly what the BBC is. But I don't think that the vast majority of people attending Glastonbury or performing at Glastonbury have got any idea that this is what they're involved with. They just go along, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, open-minded, looking for a fun weekend out in the country, indulge in some hedonism, see all their friends at the same time, but actually they're being coerced and manipulated into accepting some stuff that they probably wouldn't have done if they thought about it, and the message had been delivered in a different way, right? And that's just one example on one website, having a couple of clicks around, and that's maybe a little insight into my life and how my head works. Basically, this is what I spend my time doing. We all do, basically. So this is one example. And if you were here earlier, you would have heard me talking about the beast system and the two wings of it. So the way I think about it is you have the left wing, which is all about power, and that obviously aligns to left-wing politics. And then you have the right wing, which is all about money. And this is the left wing. This is the power side of the beast system. And now we'll have a little look at what's also going on also in music on the money side. Those two things meet at the top, by the way. So actually, you go that way, they actually meet at the top, and power and money become integrated, become the same thing around people like Charles. Yeah, he's a power and money guy, ultimately. Very wealthy, very powerful. And making all of the cultural decisions for... Basically, when we think about Glastonbury, the audience for that is basically the whole of Middle England, really, because it dictates what comes out in the newspapers. It's the people who own stuff, really, in the country. It's all being manipulated by these people through these cultural events that are not supposed to be about that. So on the money side of it, who's at the KKR? Kohlberg, Kravis, Roberts. No? Okay, that's interesting. So they are, I was going to say were, but no, they're still around, a global private equity fund. The original private equity fund, they actually invented private equity. Launched in 1978. They've got about something like $500 billion worth of assets under management. Huge global operation. One of the founders, Henry Kravis, which is the second K in KKR, and his wife, both on the Council on Foreign Relations. His wife is also the co-chair of the Bilderberg Group. Yeah, these are top level global governance people. And they also invest in weapons companies, a lot in weapons companies, and they're also currently speculating on the redevelopment of Gaza once it's been ethnically cleansed by the RDF. Right, so this is the kind of business that they're into. They're into a lot of other stuff as well, right? But these are the sorts of people that are now getting involved in music culture, and actually what they've done back in it was last year, 2024. They acquired a bunch of big international and European festivals, and they created something called Superstruct. And this is how Superstruct talks about itself.
Automatic
quite good, aren't they? So yes, that Superstructure Entertainment. What they've done is they've taken 80 music festivals, and many of these were originally proper creative, well, for the right reasons, operations. Some of them have been running since, like Sonar Festival, which I'll talk about in a moment, has been running since the mid-90s, and actually that's like the jewel in the crown of European electronic music festivals. Amazing what they've done over the years. Like incredible curation, incredible production. They take over the centre of Barcelona for about a week in the summer every year. They've got incredible sort of daytime programming and then the nighttime, and the most amazing roster of international artists. Some of these are quite niche. Some of them you might be familiar with. I don't know. Hijacked Festival in Croatia. You've got Boardmasters, which is down in Cornwall every year. And across here, we're talking about touching the lives and the minds and the eyeballs and the ears of millions of people every year. Yeah, it's a huge operation, this has caused enormous controversy in the music community. It's been fascinating to watch this play out. The past 6 months in particular, there's always been a very active pro-Palestine, anti-Zionist contingent in electronic music, DJ culture. That's kind of where I come from. I can't speak so much to like indie rock and guitars and all that kind of thing, but in the electronic world, it's always been there. But with what's happened since October 7th, 2023, and the fact that essentially we've had this genocide live streamed to us over the internet 24/7, and we now have a global investment fund that is investing in weapons companies that are operating in that genocide and also speculating on the potential future development opportunities for the land that they're trying to take. A lot of artists have taken real exception to this, and a lot of the audience in particular have taken real exception to this. And I think what's beginning to happen here is, like we showed at the beginning with the face stretch back, is that actually now that we're up close to it, people are really beginning to notice that these organisations are not what they were. They have been taken over by a parasitic entity, a corporate entity that is not interested in delivering what you thought you were going to get, but actually is interested in something very, very different. The Sonar Festivals actually had to come out in a really unprecedented fashion and make these public statements, basically saying, and they had to do this under quite significant duress, because a lot of the questions that were being asked were essentially, okay, if we come to Sonar, if we buy a ticket to your festival, we're not just funding KKR. And what they came out and said was, no, not at all. At no time have we ever sent, nor will we ever send, a single euro to KKR, which is an accounting trick, basically. Right? Because actually, they could probably say, we don't send any euros to KKR, but the thing is, KKR owns our bank account. Yeah? Entirely. All of it, lock, stock and barrel. We are completely controlled and owned and operated by them. We don't send them any euros, though. Right? And this is the kind of thing that we're starting to see come out of the culture. There's a lot of obfuscation and backpedaling and people trying to brush things under the carpet. But I think actually that the dam is broken on this now. And it's really interesting to see that all of these organisations, these 80 plus festivals, I'll kind of get onto this a bit more towards the end, right? But actually they're beginning to collapse. And this cultural superstructure, which is a bit of a hint about the name, right? Superstruct, is beginning to break down. And it's being undermined from below by the real culture, like Patrick was saying earlier, right? This idea of culture and counterculture, actually those things are reversed. The real culture is the thing that's down on the grassroots at a street level, and that is actually beginning to chip away at the foundations of this huge global corporate behemoth that Sonar Festival is obviously sending no euros to. But the thing is, it's not just about money, right? And this is the important thing. Really important thing. And a lot of people, because obviously they've come out and made this statement, we don't give any money to KKR, but actually that's kind of by the by. It doesn't really matter, because they're not just buying you for the opportunity to make a few quid from selling £10 bottles of water to 23-year-olds, right? Like that's not what they're there to do. What they're there to do is to own the mind space and to put forward a very specific political message, a very specific cultural message, a very specific technological message as well. And actually, one of the other things that I do when on the Sonar website, when you go down to the bottom again and you look at what logos are down there, you can see there's this organisation called Sador, and Sador is a technology consulting business, not entirely dissimilar to the kind of ones that I would have worked with many years ago. And who are they owned by? They're owned by the Carlyle Group. Who's the Carlyle Group? It was the second biggest beneficiary of the war in Iraq after Halliburton. They made an absolute killing, founded by David Rubenstein, member of the tribe like me, who is also on the Council on Foreign Relations. And these are the people who are calling the cultural shots. These are the people pushing forward messages like this. Do you see that in that video? You did? That's quite aggressive, isn't it? He's trying to tell you something there. And then also that. Yeah? The Horned Beast. So what is that we're looking at? Is that a music festival, or is that some kind of ritualistic ceremony imbued with bizarre messaging and witchcraft? And again, this is what Mark Devlin was talking about last night. You know? Is this what the music industry's been doing the whole time? I think it probably has, at least in part. And then this one as well. So 3 times in that 2-minute video, they're pushing this. Straight up satanic messaging. And that's what these people are investing billions in pushing out into the world. Right? And it is about the mind space. You know, Brian always talks about this document, Mind Space, which came out of the Behavioural Insights team back in 2010. Which is one of the key documents that the nudge people use to think about how they can get our society to do exactly what they want it to do, you know, but to nudge us into it, to manipulate us into it, to coerce us. And this was a quote that came out of that video. We turn dreams into stories, into memories that last a lifetime. Right? Think about that. They last a lifetime. We're going to embed this into you forever. It's not just about money. It's not just about hedonism. It's about something much more than that. And actually, as I've kind of alluded to, it's the superstructure. And this takes us straight into Marxist theory. Yeah? So the superstructure comes from Marxist theory. It talks about the philosophy and art and law and literature and culture itself, ultimately. You know, it's the stuff that exists above the industrial base, which they have also replaced with something that looks a little bit like this. I didn't make this, I found it, but actually I think this fits the bill quite nicely. Superstruct is about that. The superstructure. It's been transformed. We're no longer about nation states. We're about this thing, this ugly flag, and all of the stuff that goes around that, right? And the base, the industrial base, is global corporations. Yeah. This is what is driving the agenda at Superstruct. This is what's driving the agenda in the music industry, and it all is beginning to look a little bit like that, basically, a bit hideous up close. And that's what my journey was, discovering what music was really about, basically. And the antidote to all this, I'll leave it on a positive note and not that disgusting face, is that we all get to rebuild it ourselves together from the ground up in the right way. And a great way to start doing that is through exactly what's happening in this tent and in the fields around us, which is for good people who want to come together and celebrate life and community and creativity without this constant drive towards profit or power or hidden agendas. Can actually make culture new again, and it will grow up from the fields like the real plants in the permaculture out the back there. And that's the task ahead of us. That's the way I see it. And you know, amongst the other things that I do around UK Column, I'm getting involved much more now back into music, and I can see some green shoots beginning to break through, not just here today, but also in London and elsewhere around the UK and around the world. So despite how hideous some of the stuff is that we just talked about, I am very optimistic for the not just far future, but the immediate future and today as well. So that's it. Thank you for listening.
Super. Ben, thank you very much indeed. Now, does anybody have any questions for Ben? Come on. Yeah, there we go. Good man. Well done.
Hi, Ben. That was really interesting. I've been in music education for the last 20 years. I also, in 97, I was one of the bands that played the big stage on Glastonbury Festival. So whoever down here said that's when bands were still cool, then I'm happy with that. My point is, it's not just the festivals. If you look at what's going on with Live Nation, with all the venues all over the country, and Ticketmaster with all the ticket sales, you'll find the corporatisation of the live music industry is across the whole sector. I wonder if you've done any digging into those corporations as well, because and just a positive point as well. There's a lot of waking up in the next generation of musicians that are making their own music and going to their own venues and crowd surfing their own album releases and avoiding all this. And there's a lot of bands I know that wouldn't go near Glastonbury or some of those just for that reason. But yeah, I wonder if you've got any thoughts on Live Nation and Ticketmaster and those sorts of those organisations that we're all likely to interact with when we go to live music.
I have looked at it. I've focused on the festivals just in the interest of time, and also it's something I've been looking at over the past couple of weeks. But no, you're absolutely right. Like Live Nation, Ticketmaster, and any organisation that tries to centralise control and profit-making potential to itself, generally using technology, and does that in a way that is detrimental to the rest of the system surrounding it, is bad news, right? Like they're destructive to organic ecosystems, right? And they're just other examples of multinational corporations that are run purely for profit in the interest of their shareholders, and everything that goes along with it, because it's the same thing with all of them ultimately. Yeah. So the two things. So one is, I think it was the gentleman over here mentioned earlier that music is being used to road test a lot of the new technologies, and that's partly because they've got a younger audience and they're more amenable to the changes that are happening in the digital infrastructure, but also because in order to get into a venue, you've always had to have a ticket, right? So there's a component of compliance there already. So what they're doing is building around that. And what you'll find is that a lot of the kind of technological roadmap for digital ID and even things like the PCR test results and all that stuff in that horrible period that we won't name, that was being normalised through the music industry, and those big platforms are absolutely at the centre of it. And then the other thing that I'm noticing that they're doing at the minute, and it's those corporate platforms, but then also some of the bigger artists. I've noticed Coldplay doing this quite a bit. Oh, what's his name? Chris Martin, who is a UN Global Citizen Ambassador, by the way. I mean, he's got, and I think he might be a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader too. Like, he's not a good guy, right? But basically what they're doing, the economy's collapsing, right? Literally, the economic system is gone into free fall over the past. I mean, it's really accelerated over the past 5 years, but it was already kind of on its uppers before that. And what they're doing is basically saying, okay, well, the grassroots music venues and the smaller artists are basically struggling to keep their head above water. A lot of them are being shut down. A lot of them are not able to continue following their passion and participating in the music industry. So what we'll do, we'll give them a couple quid. You know, like, God knows how much money Chris Martin's got. God knows how much money Ticketmaster make every year. But what they'll do, they'll put a couple of quid into some charitable foundation, and then that will basically give people a false sense of hope and security that things are going to get better, whereas actually what should happen is the whole thing should just collapse, and then we should have a proper reckoning about why that's happened and what to do about it, and they're just prolonging the inevitable. So I'm seeing a lot of that in music at the moment, definitely. Very cynical. Really, really cynical. People will sit on stage, and this is the thing, when you understand, you get into the upper levels of the music industry, same as anywhere really, but I find music particularly offensive, is that when you're up on stage as a big time international artist, and you're essentially riding on the admiration and the adoration of these legions of fans, in order to get into that position, you've had to betray every single one of those people, in a really fundamental way, and to kind of decide to participate in that, I think, well, they say you have to sell your soul, right? I think that's the mechanism through which that happens. You completely betrayed all these people that are elevating you, and that you should be looking out for ultimately, you know. Any more questions?
On that note, I think the looking out for each other is the bit that I think we'll take away for the uplift. Terrific. Ben, thank you very much indeed. I think there's a huge amount to think about hereafter, not least because of all the various and amazing music that's going to be going on now and for the rest of the festival. Ben, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.